Here we go. Hello, hello, all. Welcome to the Rebel Preacher today. And we have a special guest with us. And I'm talking fast because he's got limited battery. And I know what it's like to have limited battery. So I don't want to waste much time on myself. Marty Leeds, how are you doing today?
Good to finally hook up and chat and do this. So
It's only been about 6 months since we've been talking about it.
I know, but life this year has been absolutely. I was just thinking about this on the way over too. That this year has been the craziest year of my life by far.
Right. Well, so I know I watch your videos of you and your wife out in the snow, and I'm like, okay, these are some special people right here because I'm in the South, and today it's like 30 degrees, and I don't even go outside. And y'all running around out in the snow barefooted and stuff like that. So I know you're a special kind of people and everything like that. And I can appreciate that because I know Amar moved up there, and I'm like, what are you doing moving up there with these people? But hey, I'm true Southern. That's where I'm at. Never a Southern Baptist, though. I will state that up front, except for a short time. But Marty, I wanted to have you on the show because we do have your new book out here. Right here, Lord Jesus Christ. And I'll have your website, but it's being upgraded right now. So I can't share that with anyone right now, but maybe it'll be up before long, I hope. But so the book, you made a comment in the Telegram group, basically that this was your crescendo right here, this book. Now, I have started this book, and as you can see how thick this book actually is, this probably could have been 3 to 4 books. Seriously, would you not agree?
It is pretty much 3 to 4 books.
That's what I'm thought. Because when I'm reading it, I don't read anything in order. I go through and find what interests me. Then I go back and reread it. And the Kabbalah chapter alone could have been a book within itself. Why do you feel like, because you've got a lot of books. I mean, anyone who's joined your website knows martyleeds33.com. You have plans that you can join. You have plenty of books on there. Why do you feel like this is your crescendo? What was so special about this book that you have felt the urgency and stuff to get it out right now?
Well, I mean, the because of the book, the subject.
It's not your normal Lord Jesus Christ book. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's that alone was like, okay, this is something extra special. Clearly, this is something that, and I had no. I mean, when I started doing this, I had no idea that I'd even be writing a book on Lord Jesus Christ. I actually was basically going to go through the last several books and basically kind of do an update of like, okay, so to answer your question, the last, basically my entire writing career, the last 10 years has basically been exploratory. It's still exploratory in many respects, but it has been like, okay, what is all this? Right. I'm learning this stuff as much as I'm teaching it. So I'm going through learning new insights, all this sort of stuff. And so when I wrote the first 4 or 5 books, it was literally me just sort of, taking the knowledge that I had, but basically throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall to see what stuck.
Right.
And then writing it down, be like, hey, I don't know, but this is what, and there's certain things we can know, like we can know the 7 triangular number. We can know a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We can all of those sorts of things. But there was a lot of things that were like, okay, well, I got to do some sort of examination, exploration in order to really try to find truth. So that was the series of books. So it was like, okay, I'll do volume 1. And when in writing volume 1, I was like, well, God, I have enough stuff here for probably 3 books here, it ended up being more. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just do them in volumes. Second volume, let's hack at a few things. And in volume 3 and then Peacock's Tales. And so in that whole process, at some point I look back and I was like, okay, well, there's a lot here. I can no longer be doing exploration. I really need to lay this out in a very explicitly scientific manner, like saying, okay, there's no more guesswork here. What we're going to do right now is say, this is what we can know. And so when I went to go lay out this next book that I was going to write, which I had no idea was going to be on Christ, I laid out everything that I wanted to do, all the stuff I wanted to write about, all the chapters and subjects. And I was like, this whole thing's on Christ, like the whole thing. I was like, in fact, I realized at one point, I was like, I could explain all this stuff best through Christ. Not like I could just explain it through Christ. I was like, no, the best way to anchor all of this subject matter would be through Christ.
Right.
And so, and then it was like a huge revelation because I've always sort of, sorry, I don't mean to rant here, but I always have like bitched for years about a lot of the gematricians online and things like that. And they would put numbers together and use 4 to 10 different ciphers. And they would talk about how somebody's going to die. And there's a death that's coming up here. And the basketball game is this. And it was like garbage to me, because I always knew that true gematria, that study, was all about the spiritual aspect of it. It was all about, it was there to, I mean, this study explicitly is there to lead you to the divine. So then I had this sort of revelation. I was like, Jesus, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing with gematria, is writing a book like this. And so it all just culminated, and it culminated on the 42nd year of my life, which is 42 is an unbelievable, Kabbalistic number. I mean, we can talk about 42 generations, Abraham to Christ, and 42 letter name of God and Kabbalah and all this sort of stuff, 42, huge number. So it was just really crazy, because it was like more synchronicity, because I was like, Jesus, I started this whole thing on my 32nd and 33rd year.
Wow.
Right. And that's, of course, once again, Kabbalah, 32 and 33, you can't write, trigger numbers for lots of people. So that's when I wrote my first book, started the website and stuff. And then here 10 years later, I'm here now, and it's been like, and I've been completely open, honest, forthright, and even vulnerable in my pursuit this entire time. Like, I'll come out and say, he's got something wrong. Like, I mean, that sort of stuff. It's not, like, as soon as I found out that we've been lied to about our cosmology, I didn't waste any time. I was like, I'm going to start making a documentary on it. I'm going to tell people, So that's what it's been about.
Well, the first chapter, you deal with the flower, and you basically go over your journey of how you didn't always believe, basically, in maybe Christ, or maybe close to not even believing in God. And it goes through your whole journey of this flower, of how you saw Jesus within this flower and everything like that. What kept you from the edge of falling off to where you just became a total maybe atheist or a Gnostic maybe, and just said, forget it? What kept you on the side of believing in a logos, a God, basically?
No belief, proof.
Yes. Go ahead.
That's what it was. Because there was, like, before I'd ever even looked at religions and started looking at those, one of the things that kept getting my ear was math. And then, of course, you see all it takes is a really keen eye and some, deep philosophy, I think, philosophical going in, self-reflection and reflection on the world and stuff like that, to clearly see that this thing was created.
Right.
And there was all these tells that showed that there was some sort of design signature, whether that be the once again, the degree of phyllotaxis or the golden mean, golden section, golden ratio. You see it on inanimate and animate objects. You see it within rocks and birds. You know what I mean? You see all this sort of stuff. Then there was also a point where I also got to with my philosophy. It was like that everything is so perfectly balanced here that, they tell you these stories about how you're spinning out in the middle of galaxies and there's 93 million mile away sun and everything's just an accident and the earth could just go poof just like that and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? But then your actual experience is everything is perfectly balanced in every single way. Those things are huge tells that this thing was created. Then, of course, my own experience being a creative kid or whatever, synchronicities and things that happened in my life, which I could talk endlessly about, which were just like, whoa, that's not cogs and gears and nuts and bolts and machinery working through time. That's something else.
Right.
And so all of those things really sort of put me on the path saying, well, that there's some sort of creator, that this was created. I don't know if it's any of the religions or whatever, right? Blah, 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 blah. And so I just kept on that,
Right. So
then the proofs came.
Right.
Then they started coming. Then it was just like, oh, you really want to know? You really want to know? Are you sure? You're going to be able to handle it if I give it to you? Okay. Boom.
But where did you get your understanding of gematria, synchronicity? Obviously you didn't grow up into this stuff, and I'll be honest with you, Synchronicity was the Police album, and that's all I know of Synchronicity was the great album they put out in '83. But I mean, you know a lot of this stuff, and I'm sitting there looking at, man, there's no way I can keep this guy's a freaking math major or something like that, and I'm sitting there saying, well, okay, here we go. But where did you come to the understanding of these arts? Because you call out a lot of things that many of us within Christianity or Judaism, except for Kabbalah, and even in our understanding of Kabbalah is not like your understanding of Kabbalah. So where did you get this? I mean, did you just go out and start searching for the information? How did you know there was an English gematria? I know a Hebrew gematria, but where did you get all this information? How did you discover this? Is what I'm saying, because this is stuff that I don't know of anybody that knows any of this stuff, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, just to let you know, I now that I see the world, I know that there's lots of people that know this stuff,
okay.
Looking out into the world, being, once again, after seeing this for 10, 12 years or whatever it's been now,
right.
People, the quote unquote evil people of the world certainly do know this level of information.
Oh yes, I believe that.
Absolutely. Right. Done enough videos on that too. But as far as like where, once again, inner seeking. So number one, also doing lots of research, just being open-minded to be like, okay, well, if somebody tells you, well, don't go, just like you hear, right? Don't go over there. That's where the devil worship are, stuff like that. There was part of me that was like, okay, well, if you're telling me that, I'm going there. You know what I mean? Like if you're just like when I was a kid, tell me not to smoke cigarettes. Chances are I'm going to smoke cigarettes. It was one of those things, right? So once again, I was never satisfied with people's answers to these things, whatever it was. Right. Okay. So, because a lot of times, as I've come to find, people were completely full of crap. They didn't understand it at all. So that was just really seeking out, just constantly seeking out answers in this sort of sense, knocking and, asking, that sort of stuff. So that led down all sorts of paths. One of them was, of course, psychology that led me into all this sort of angle, Jungian stuff, synchronicities. And I was like, whoa, I've experienced a lot of that stuff, then going into everything from quantum physics and, BS physics and space physics and all that sort of stuff and astrophysics, right. All that, going into that, going down this road and then just, keeping my mind open and be like, okay, well, what's truth? What's not,
Right.
When I got to somewhere like Kabbalah, right? This is what I experienced. This is what I experienced every time I got to, whenever it was somebody, and I still see it today, even the majority of writers that I even mentioned in the book, I would have vast disagreements with Kabbalah about, right? Even Manly Palmer Hall, I would vehemently disagree with certain aspects of things he would say, right, about this. So I would go in and I would see and I'd constantly read and it was like, no one really has it. I got the feeling that I'm like, at least when it comes to all these books and things like that, it seems like they're trying to explain things that they don't really have a full understanding of. It reminded me a lot of like when I would listen to people that talk about like space and stuff like that. Before even a flat earther, you would hear these things and be like, if you were, at least for me, I was like, wait, what? Is that really, there was all these sort of questions, like it just didn't sit right. And so at least for Kabbalah, I was like, okay, well, I did the same thing with that subject that I did with math in and of itself. You talk to a million mathematicians at any university level, and if they say, hey, adding 1 + 4 is 5, that's a legitimate mathematical, like 14 phalanges, 1 + 4 is 5. That's a legitimate mathematical, function or whatever, right? They would all disagree. They would all be like, no, that's nonsense. So I went in and said, no, that's actually on your hands. So this thing that's called Kabbalistic reduction is specifically what I'm talking about here. Taking a number like 25 and looking at the number 7, 2 + 5 is 7. I can't even name a mathematician that would say that that's a legitimate function. So I was like, well, no, there's absolute legitimacy here. Not only do we see all these like religious people utilizing it for some reason, I didn't know why, but it's absolutely legitimate. It's on your hands. So I had to go in and say, well, look, all those mathematicians are wrong. I mean, the hubris of that, the arrogance of that in one sense, but it wasn't out of arrogance and it wasn't out of hubris. It was just like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. Right. So the same thing with Kabbalah. There's lots in the Kabbalistic teaching that's good. That's obviously, especially like when you get into Hebrew stuff and they talk about the 10 emanations and how well they've kept up some of the teachings of this. Right. But at the end of the day, because I think a lot of them actually don't have the spiritual center to base their actual teachings in, I think they're lost. Right. And for me, I can step back as sort of like because I don't really have a bias in any of this stuff at all.
Right.
None. Right. I went in like fresh fish kind of thing. I can step back and be like, no, that's not right. You know what I mean? Because you can't explain using logic, rationale, reason, what exactly it is you're saying. But if you bring this to bear on it, you absolutely can. Next thing you know, your mysteries are no longer so mysterious.
Right.
You can actually bring meat and potatoes to what you're talking about. No, they're talking about specific attributes of numbers that exist within nature. So this is not some philosophy or some good ideas or a collection of conjectures. This is divine freaking science, and so that's a very unique insight, and people don't like that because most people have an understanding. It's like, oh, isn't that Judaish devil worship, or isn't that what Madonna does, or isn't that what Britney Spears? It's like, no, not at all. Like, what are you talking about? Like, no, they're full of shit too, like, so, and that's what we should expect in the age that we're in,
right?
That, I mean, once again, is it hubris to come, or arrogant to come along and say, well, all the physicists of the world have their head up their behinds. They don't know what they're talking about. They're completely full of nonsense. They're regurgitating a bunch of crap. Is that arrogant? No, it's just the truth. There's nothing arrogant in speaking truth.
Right.
So,
which most religious conversation is regurgitation of past bull crap, because it depends on what box or what religion you may be in. And this is not a kick against anybody, but it's just true. When I was in Christianity, I just spewed out what I heard my pastor, his pastor. You just spread the same stuff. And anytime you started, well, I'm going over here, don't go over here. That'll take you the wrong way. You'll be on the wrong path. And me, like you, if you tell me that, I'm already one step the other way anyway. I'm not going to stay with you. So, I mean, you're so right. The only thing that we know, and I hate to bring this in, but we have to. Even in our government today, we're hearing the same bullshit over and over again. It's like the definition of insanity, giving the same answer and expecting a different result. And we're hearing the same thing over and over again. Every month, it's the same thing, but whatever, blah, blah, blah. So you're absolutely right. When you go to these people, you're expecting an intellectually honest answer, but really you're just getting leftover stuff from generations past is all you're getting. And if you try to go any other way around it, you're automatically be judged as a heretic, which I wear that proudly, and stuff of that nature. But you're going to be doomed from that point on.
Well, it's kind of the issue that we have right now is because, we're up north here. And so people ask me, like, what do you do? And it's like, well, I'm not going to lie, it's like, so I'm going to tell you what it is I do. It's like, well, I run an online ministry, I'm an author, and, I teach Christianity. And so automatically we see it, like, we just spoke to this older lady the other day, just sweet, wonderful old lady. And her eyes just lit up. She's like, oh, she's like, oh, well, you should come teach at our church. And Jennifer and I are just kind of like, well, I would love to, but do you really want your whole, and so we have that. I mean, there's being who we are and what we are and things like that. We're going to have those problems. There's not, that's just part of the deal, right? That's just walking the walk, talk the talk kind of thing. And so, but it is unfortunate too, because all those people, and they're, like I said, this lady's sweet. She's lived a life of charity, of giving her time. She said 3 T's. I'm going to talk about in the next live stream. 3 T's: her time, her talent, and her treasure. Okay. And it's, and you could tell, like, she's just sitting there and she cares so much. She was like almost crying in front of us. 81-year-old lady, still getting around, still taking care of things, smile on her face, going to church. There's also a part of me that's like, I really don't care what you believe. Like, if Christ in your life, in that sense, has allowed you to live such a wonderful life where you're given your time, your talent, you're 81 years old and you're still going down, and she's on the council of the church committee because she wants to give her time and her talent and her treasure. That's amazing. It is. The problem with that is that then those people, because they've just begotten that regurgitated thing that we're talking about over years and years, and their parents had the regurgitated thing, and grandpapa had that regurgitated thing. When somebody like myself comes in and upsets that order, it's, it's like, oh, well, you're a devil worshiper or something.
Right.
Like,
right.
No, I just don't have the same beliefs that you do.
Right.
So,
That's good. I'll wait for that video on the 3 T's. That'll be really good. Yeah, if you go on Marty's channel on his YouTube page, he also has, I think, 1 or 2 debates with 2 Orthodox Christians also, don't you? I know of one for sure. And you had a response. And then I think you talked to another one. I don't know if he was a priest, but he was an Orthodox person. He was a little, to me, that was a better video because he was more working with you than that first one you did with that. I don't know if they call them priests, what they call the people in Orthodox. But that second one was a lot better because it seemed like y'all were able to communicate better than that first one. So Marty does actually talk to other Christian people, but don't seem to go too well sometimes.
I've pretty much given that up. I mean, I said for longest time, I run a mystery school. I mean, I don't do like your classic mystery where it's like, they would have like a whatever, they would do some sort of theater or drama and there would be a ritual, and I don't do that sort of stuff, but I have a place where you can go and learn the mystery. So I call it a mystery school,
Right.
I already know that's going to immediately, you're going to miss out on 98% of the people just by doing that in and of itself.
Right.
There's nothing I can do about that. I'm not going to fight it, but I also realized too that those people, like some of the Orthodox that I had spoken to that were, and that have ascended on my channel and given me crap for months, literally, which is really annoying. But I just have to let those people go because it's like they don't get it. They've already put me in a box. They're already, he's this thing over here, and they've never been honest with anything I've said. Never read any of the books, never really gotten it, put themselves in my shoes. I put myself in your shoes, just so you know. Years I've watched and been there in your shoes to think or to believe what you believe. And now all I'm doing is coming by and be like, well, we can poke a few holes in that. And I've got some serious questions. But not only do I have serious questions, there's some serious answers to those things.
Right.
And they're right in your holy book.
Yeah, and the shame is it's in their tradition also, but they don't even want to talk about the mysteries, even within their beautiful tradition of a spiritual aspect that they don't even want to go down no more. Some do have the guts to talk about it, but there is some beautiful spirituality within Orthodox that they just refuse to talk about anymore. It's just like, no more. Can't talk about it.
I talked to the one, was named Chris. I talked to 2 guys after I talked to that Brother Augustine guy, and they were both really sweet guys, right? And they were both getting into Orthodox. I think the one guy through Jonathan Peugeot, because he does a lot with symbolism and stuff, and so he's helping out people, which is great. And he was a really sweet guy, and he said it like this: is like, where a lot of people will go, and what I see is the Gnostic position. A lot of people will go as Christians and be like, no. That's a wrong denomination. That's a wrong way of thinking. That's wrong ritual. No, we don't do the Trinity. Yes, we do the Trinity. It's always these no's, always putting these blockades up and barriers up. And my position was like, no, just break all those barriers down and say yes.
Right.
Because ultimately, if Christ is all and in all, and Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever, well, then at some point, and wading through the crap and the nonsense and the fog, there's got to be Christ there somewhere. And that includes in Masonry, and that includes in Orthodoxy, and that includes in Judaism, and that includes in whatever. You go down the list, as Gnostics, it's impossible to reject Hinduism or Buddhism or Taoism or any of the other isms because you realize that Christ is all and in all. Number one of the first commandments is to love thy brother. Your enemy is your friend. Your brother is your friend. You know what I mean? In the sense that to love, not to necessarily your friend, but you get what I'm saying. You have to exude love to them, emit love to them. Why? Because even your enemy has the heart of Christ. There's Christ in there somewhere. Might not know it. He might have buried it through piles of garbage and nonsense and lies and sucking the teat of, Father Time and the devil, but it's still in there.
Right.
And so that's that. It's the Gnostic position of saying, yes, what can I learn? What can I learn? My path is never changing. My path is always the path of truth. My path is always the path of salvation, always the path of eternal life. My path is never changing. Does that mean I'm supposed to reject? No. I don't. So I know Amor takes that position, and he's been in those orders. And he'll tell you the same sort of thing. There is truth in Rosicrucianism, and a lot of times that truth will lead you right to Christ. Truth in Masonry. A lot of times that truth will lead you right to Christ. So, and that's awesome. I think it's amazing.
What's your definition of Christ?
Well, I think Amor's definition is probably the best. It's your true self.
That's what that's what I was going off. Also, his book I have on that. He talks about that because a lot of people, they'll automatically want to put you in a box. First of all, you said Gnostic, so oh my God, I know you're the typical Gnostic out there, and then you said Christ, so you have to be a typical Christian. You're really effed up because you're a Gnostic Christian, so you must be a Valentinian. So I'm gonna put you in that box also. So I wanted to bring that up because I know people on my channel like to judge according to a term, which I hate using, but you have to use them sometimes. But you're absolutely right. I agree with you because, you say Christ with the Jew and they automatically think of, Jesus on the cross and whatever. I'm like you. I don't care what you believe, but there obviously is something divine within all of us. There is a creative spark within us that the Creator has put within us. And that's what I call the Christ consciousness, or that divine spark, or the Mashiach, whatever you want to call it. And that's what I try to get my people on my channel to look for. I don't give a dang about your religion. I don't care what you believe or whatever, because I can't change you anyway. But if I can get you to look inside and try to find that spark, that inside, because to me, an atheist doesn't have any hope, because without a belief in God, there's nothing special within you anyway. You're just like the cats and the dogs, and I'm not knocking the dogs and the cats, but we have the opportunity to go inside and find that. Where I don't know that they have the same way we can. I'm not saying they don't have it, because I got an argument with that. They could have it. I'm just saying that we as human beings have that capacity to do the search that many animals can't do. So I had to be careful when you said that, to identify, because people automatically want to put you in boxes when you say certain things, because I can hear them now. Gnostic, which one is he? A Sethian? What is he? What kind of Gnostic is it? So I had to bring that up.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and I actually should cover this again. I've talked about it several times, but people get hung up on these terms, like we were saying, and so Gnosticism was like, oh, so you read the Gnostic Gospels, so you do this and this, and I'm like, well, so once again, I just cut out all the nonsense and all people's opinions, and I just said, well, what is Gnosis? What is Gnosis? And that is just pursuit of the mysteries, of knowledge of the mysteries, pursuit of the knowledge of them. That's it. Divine mystical insight, pursuing knowledge of the mysteries. The kingdom of heaven is the mysteries. God wants you to know about that. So when I got to the term, and I was like, oh, okay, well, just like Christianity, okay, well, you can be the Protestant over here, and the Branch Davidians over here, and the Baptists over here, and the blah, blah, blah over here. And there's a billion other explanations. Well, it goes the same thing with Gnostics. Gnostics, you can get this sect over here and this group over here. Well, does any of them have it all right? No. Right. But, then it gets to the point where it's like, okay, well, how do I explain myself? Well, I'm all about the Bible. That's what my main focus on. My family lineage has been, had Catholics in it, and I had nuns in my family lineage and all this other stuff. Right. So I'm drawn towards that. But what am I doing with this scripture? What am I doing with Christ here? What is this? Well, it's seeking out knowledge of the mysteries. Right. And that's exactly what I was doing. So I was like, okay, well, because I had the hardest time defining myself, which is ridiculous anyway, as we know.
It is.
It's all ridiculous. But I was like, I have no problem saying Gnostic, because that's what we're doing, So, and Christianity, that's what we're doing too. Do you think, and then it got to the point, it was like, oh, can I still talk about Christianity? And then, oh, can we go and check out the Egyptian Book of the Dead here? Can I go over here and talk about the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Can I go over here to the Enuma Elish? And can we still talk about Christ? And then I found out absolutely we can. It's silly to think you can't, And so there was no conflict. It was all open doors for me. I was like, okay, well, I'm walking through them. It worked. It's been working this far. You know what I mean? And so, and honestly, really focusing on the ministry and changing everything over to, Gnostic Church and Academy of Lord Jesus Christ has really sort of put me on a better course with this whole thing. Because it's like, before it was like, well, I'm teaching this and I'm having fun, I'm cracking jokes and playing music and stuff. But now I have a very specific purpose, and it's great. It's awesome.
Well, let me throw this in real fast. On Sundays, Marty does have a live service. On Sundays, it's 11 o'clock Central, or
9 Central
9 o'clock Central, which 10's my time. And I was past 2. They are great. You get some good words, understanding, and fellowship that I don't get around here. I could go to other churches, but I just don't connect. And because anyway, so I mean, that's the thing, is it's a good time of fellowship, and he's just started it, and it's really good because you're getting you're in Mark right now, and Mark 2 and 3, right?
Yeah, we'll do 3 this Sunday. So
3 this Sunday. That's
and
right.
It's going to be good. I just was overviewing it last night, and it's going to be good.
I know it is. I know it's going to be good. So I want to invite people to go over there and do that. And like I said, he also has memberships too that you can go, very inexpensive, that you can listen. He has a lot of music and stuff on there, a lot of podcasts, books that he has free on there that you can read. And I'm really waiting for him to get his Bible and his rosary and all that stuff so we can get going with that too. So this is something that in my life I have been waiting for, is someone to step forward and to take this seriously, because it seems like so many YouTube people, especially in spirituality, do what they do, but they don't really do anything to prepare others for their journey also. I mean, they give you information and that's fine, but I believe, Marty, what you're doing is you're kind of taking us along with you, even on your Sundays and stuff like that, trying to bring in almost like a church setting to help us discover who we are in these crazy ass times that we're living in, that we need this sanity that we're in, because I feel like government wise, we're fixing to enter in some real weird stuff that we're fixing to see. And I think we need this level consciousness of seeking truth to help us make it through these times we're in.
I mean, I'd like to think I'm filling a void, and
right.
because it's really, and I'll just say I can just say this, it's been a void in my life.
Right.
Like I'm doing essentially what I've always looked for in some part of me, whether I was conscious of it or not. I was always seeking something like this out. So now I'm sort of doing that and sort of filling the void. But that void is not just in Christianity. That void is everywhere. Like,
it's everywhere.
And obviously, it, I think lots of people know it, but, we just talk about Amor just left the Masonic Hall, right? I mean, he was a brother down around Madison area, and he left because, well, they were all wearing the masks, and they're all like, oh, January 6th is a bad thing. He's very liberal place, so you expect to see some of that, So, but he's like, he's there and he knows what's up. He knows all of it. And he's like, brothers, what's so there's a void of true Masons right there, right in the Masonic Hall, and he knows it.
Right.
You go into these churches and they'll have masks on, and they'll be talking about vaccines and stuff like that, and all of that sort of stuff. So there is a void. Right. And so I'm trying to fill that.
Well, I know Amar real fast. When you said Masons, he even said that he's gotten tired of the Masons today because they're not really seriously into the seeking of the knowledge and stuff. It's more like a club. You go in there, and I know down here in the South it definitely is, because I know a bunch of Masons, and they're as spiritual as my hat. And but they're into the drinking and things like that. Well, that's fine. I don't care. So even Amar said that he would rather people get more into the masonry of seeking the kingdom within than that club lodge that you see there. So, I feel that when I talk to you and Amar about this, I feel there's more to it than what I see outside on the street corners and stuff when I see masonry and things of that nature.
Well, that Masonry's lost its way when you see, just as you're saying, because that's the thing, is like so many of these, there are seekers, don't get me wrong. Of course, there's tons of lodges and millions of Masons out there. So there are seekers, but in general, it's true. You go down to your lodge and it's basically an old boys club now.
Right.
And it's been that way for a long time. And to me, because I was an outsider, once again, sort of, what do you want to call it? Like playing the sort of role of a trickster in many respects, it somehow, but I was an outsider, and I'm reading Masonic books for a decade or more, where I was like, not continually, but I was always like, oh, I'll read this Masonic writer, or look up this PDF or whatever. So I kept on it, and then I'd look at what's going down at the lodge, and it was like, people think, like what goes down at the lodge, like Satan worship, is like, no, they're just not seeking God like they should be. They're having sandwiches and they're doing their get-togethers, and there's nothing wrong with community and networking and sharing, your time with people that you actually want to spend time with, and all of that's beautiful. But the core of Masonry has been stripped out, and the core, like I said, you go and read the literature for 10, 12 years, and like, well, why isn't any of this at the lodge? Why aren't you guys focused on this? This is what you should be focused on. And so that was just another key. I even saw it many years ago. It's like, well, that's why I never really pursued joining a lodge. I saw it as like, well, this is empty. It's a husk. It's a shell. There's nothing left. There is actually something left, but right now it's deteriorated for sure.
Right. Well, that's one thing about Judaism is like when you go into the yeshiva, especially within Chabad and these ultra Orthodox groups, when you go into their places of learning, they're not there to drink coffee and eat thing. They're actually into this. If you ever see it, they're praying and chanting, and I mean, they're into it. And I can just, and I don't see that same thing like when I've been to a lot of churches and stuff like that. I see it more as a club, and that's not a negative. Community is the most important thing. I get it, but I don't see that same sense of hunger of knowledge that I get with you and Amar sometimes, that you guys are real trying to say, hey, this is all good, but the focus is we need to find the kingdom within us. And if we don't find the kingdom within us, you're going to lose yourself eventually. And when you lose yourself, you're going to be in that garbage that's been flowing for centuries and centuries, and you're just going to coast through life and not find anything. That's my biggest fear with me, is that I find into a stream of garbage that I'll never reach the potential I can in this lifetime. That's not what I want. I don't want that happening.
Well, it's such a, it's really regardless of any religion, because it's like, was Christ, was he a Christian? Where his father did at any point he's like, all right, now that I'm gone, you guys got to call yourselves Christians. No, there's nothing in there about that. People have mentioned that, many times. It's such a personal thing. So, the person can come to find Christ in Judaism, in Masonry, in Taoism, when you understand what Christ really is and how it transcends all things, and so there's lots of places where that just doesn't happen. And right. even in places where it might look like it happens, like you might go to some church or some Buddhist temple or something like that, and they're praying really hard and stuff like that. But are they challenging their own beliefs? Are they questioning reality? Are they seeking out to try and true answers to everything? Right. I would say the majority of them are not, the right. ones that do have the rebellious streak, because they're like, I'm not fitting in a box because God doesn't really want me in a box. We weren't born, we were born in boxes. So yeah, it's just the time that we're in, that there's so much vacancy as far as like true spiritual seeking. Christianity has a weird thing about it too, that I've noticed over the years, that Christianity sort of has an arc, is kind of how I explain it. Like, people that come to Christ that know nothing of the mysteries, can't really even understand the Bible. They might not even have the reading capacity to understand the deeper messages, that sort of thing. They might not be that intelligent of a person, whatever. They can still come to this, and it can change their life in profound ways, which is something that even I like admonish sometimes, and I really shouldn't. But I understand that there is an arc, that even here, because it's this sense of there is something bigger than me. It's like a 12-year heroin addict can come to Christ and be like, next thing you know, he's not doing heroin, and he's got his life together, and he's got a job, and blah, blah, blah. And it's awesome, right? And he doesn't know anything about the mysteries. He doesn't know that these are allegories and star study and all this other stuff, but it changed his life. So the power of Christ in that sense can do these things, community and stuff like that. But there's this arc that goes all the way up, that in the top of the arc is the true mysteries, the true, what we call the seed or the soul, the anagogic, the mystical, which tells you, which gives you the answers. It says there is a purpose of life. You have a purpose. There's a thing that you're here to do that's come to, and so it's interesting to see Christianity, because it works on the lower level of understanding, and it works on the high level of understanding. And I guess the issue that we have right now is that high level of understanding, there's been like a scission or a separation, that the people down here that are coming together, having community, they're living better lives. They're trying to work on themselves. They understand that there's something greater. They understand that there's a God. See, that sort of thing. It's cut off from what's up here. And that's where we're at right now. And so, we have to sort of sew the divine back together in this sort of sense. You know what I mean? Right. And sew that division up and be like, stop that. I am not your enemy. I am not your enemy, Christians, Right. So,
well, I think that's the good thing with what's going on right now, with people standing up to the government and, saying, no, I don't believe your narrative. I don't believe this, that it's actually pushing into spirituality, to where people who've been sitting in the pew for how long, or synagogue for how long, are all of a sudden saying, wait a minute, why can't we do this? Well, they're actually questioning the authority, not within the government alone, but also the authority within their spiritual life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that this whole virus separation thing has done. is people don't like being separated. They don't like social distancing. They don't like the diaper on the face word and stuff like that. We want to be part of each other. And when I read in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and all these other books talking about us being one, we are one consciousness, whether we want to admit it or not. And sure, the Antichrist wants us to be separated. But sometimes I think what's going on with what you're doing and other people are doing is it's drawing questions. And I think there's going to be a hunger that is only going to be achieved through the Creator and through going inside. And I think that's why your ministry and everything is needed so much right now to help people along this journey. If that makes any sense.
Amen.
If that makes any sense.
I think in this sense, I think everything's going along just as planned.
Right.
Especially looking at, I'm getting older. I'm having a little bit more perspective in life. I've lived some years, I've done some things, I've lived a pretty interesting life, and I can have a little bit of perspective. So I can step out of this thing for a second and be like, yeah, there's terrorism and torture, tyranny and everything's, government's new world order and stuff like this. It's like, well, I mean, you can step outside and be like, well, guess what? They're not in control,
Right.
So what is actually happening? Humanity has got so far away from God in everything. People don't pray before their meal. They don't think about God. They're not doing that daily meditation or, even contemplating in their mind or their heart and they're on the bigger, bigger meanings of life and stuff like that. We're so far away. We're hungry for the word. There's a famine for the word. We're so far away from it. And all of this that's happening right now is literally bringing logos back, is literally allowing all of really the divine back in. There's a resacralization that's happening right now. And that can only happen down here at an intense period of dissolution, destruction, decay, chaos. It's like when everything's just about to fall apart, stuff like that, that's when people start, because it's, this is cycles down here. Everything is in a cycle. Right. So God's in control of that. That's not Bill Gates and the Bloomberg, University of Bloomberg and the Microsoft or blah, 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 blah. These are not the people that are in control. God's in control.
Right.
So the only thing you can be in control of is, which is a hard lesson I've had to learn, is your response to this stuff and what you do with it.
Right.
This is the perfect time for you to build your spiritual armor like never before.
Well, I like what you said before we went on the air. We were talking with each other. You have a choice. Once you discover these things, you can either stay in the negativity, the lies, which we know are out there, and you can keep on digging and digging and digging. But if you don't fill that void with goodness and you don't fill that void with truth and life, you're going to stay miserable. And that's not where the Creator wants us to be in these times. Matter of fact, the one thing within Judaism and Hasidism is joy. They talk a lot about being joy and happy. And that's one thing I like about you and Amar. Y'all have a sense of humor. It's better to laugh at this stuff than to stay crazy trying to find this stuff out sometimes. I mean, yeah, you need to investigate and find, but at some point you've got to break away and seek something higher. If you're not, it will destroy you. This information, like Fox News continually, Newsmax continually, CNN, these things are killing people with information because they're not turning it off. And I think the same thing's true with conspiracy and spiritually sometimes. Yeah. It's time to put some things in practice sometimes and stop trying to just keep them seeking.
Yeah. I mean, I said it many, many years ago because I saw it even then. Like, people go down these rabbit holes and they're dark. And those rabbit holes are deep.
They're dark.
Dark.
Yeah.
You can get real dark. When you get into some of the stuff that people know about of child sacrifice and child, whatever, molestation and pedophilia and child trafficking, all that sort of stuff. That is horrendous. You know what I mean? And it's dark, and you can't go down there if you don't have any light.
No.
If you go down there, you will get lost. You will get sucked under, and that will be it.
Yep.
And so I said that many years ago. I'm like, go down, dig deep, find out what the devil's doing. But make sure you got some light when you come up there, when you go down there, and make sure you come back up.
Right.
Because you're not meant to be down there forever. That's not the point. But you do have to go to the underbelly. You do have to go to the underworld. You do have to seek the catabasis, right? In that sort of sense, in order to realize that that's not what's running things.
we got some comments from Amar here. He's watching. It says, it's awesome. Gnostic Christianity is spiritual and not cardinal. It's the inner mysteries. Masonry today is no different than today's Christian church. It's just a social religion, and some other comments. So obviously we're on key with what he was talking about in his book anyway. See, I did read it, Amar. I did read it. But so, I mean, I think you're right. Is what we're doing is trying to bring light to people and understanding. Like you said, I think prayer is pretty much gone out of most people's lives today because they're so like in a coma. They're almost like in a coma, information coma, that they don't let that light inside of them and they don't release it through meditation. And I think that is a very important thing that people need to be learning is how to truly actually pray. And I don't mean according to a dogma or doctrine. I'm talking about through the way the kingdom of God inside tells you to. And meditation is something that I just learned within the past year that has been very grateful and helpful to me. And, you know, I know most Christians would say these are new age and not satanic events and things of this nature, although Jesus did it in history, went in the mountains. I guess they thought he played tablet on his tablet or something like that. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's time that we bring light to this situation and not continue in the darkness, because you can get stuck in that darkness.
Yeah, too many people do. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we just live in a world with so many lies, so much deceptions, that sort of thing. Right. And so once you wake up to that, it can easily take you. But yeah, you know, the meditation thing I think is such an interesting topic too, or prayer. Like a lot of people, even the people that pray that, like, you know, to pray before a meal, I think even them, they're doing it. It's kind of going through the motions for a lot of them. It's like, oh, this is what we do. So we don't actually stop and be like, oh, let's take a moment and be like, wow, I'm really glad I have this meal in front of me.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And also, it's also the thing, like, I don't know how Jesus says it. It's something like, you know, he goes into what's the line? It's in like Matthew or something, but he goes in the market and it's like, Rabbi, or whatever. And he's got all the, you know, outer garments on to make them look all flashy and stuff like that. And he's like saying, well, no, you go in and you enter in the closet and you shut the door. Which is all, when you talk about prayer, it's not necessarily this and getting on your knees and being like, oh, Lord, oh, Father, hear me. That's an external thing. It's not saying that there's anything wrong with that.
I agree.
Right? Nothing wrong. But ultimately, all of that has to be focused on what's going on in here. That's the whole enter in, shut the door, you know. So I was just speaking to this wonderful woman, Marlene, that we've become friends with. And her son is kind of fought with Christianity, was like really into it for a while, but then has really gotten logical, and he's like sort of asking questions, and he sort of just drifted away from it. Not a big break as far as I know or anything, but so he doesn't do like any like quote unquote new age stuff, or that was claimed to be new age stuff like meditate or whatever. But he's like, oh, you know what? And she said this to me, and this is immediately what I thought. It's like, well, yeah, you know, he's always going out into the woods, like he's always in the woods, and he's like hunting, or he's just going for walks and stuff like that. Like, he's meditating.
That's right.
He is going into the closet and he's shutting the door, and he's in the wilderness, and he's getting away from as Amy was saying, the cardinal, the dogma, this and that. He's getting away from that. And he's like, I'm going within. That's what he's doing, you know? So for me, it was the same sort of thing. I did, some sensory deprivation tanks, things like that, which I absolutely loved. I love that sort of stuff. You know, I've had my run-in with psychedelics before. I've tried to do meditation and stuff like that. But the most time that I was, once again, going into the closet and shutting the door was when I was on a hike. I'd hike by myself. I'd just be in my thoughts, you know, just letting things flow. Or I was on my bike and I was just like, you know, think, oh, you're biking, you're not meditating. I disagree.
Right. I agree.
I was going, I don't spend hours and hours and hours, day after day, month after month, year after year, going within and being like, what's the truth? What is, you know, thinking about this thing, and sometimes not thinking at all, just shutting your brain off.
Right.
I'm not thinking, I'm just going to, you know, and so that's, you know, once again, getting into this thing, like going through the motions, or like that's the thing, like, well, lots of people pray before their meals, but do they?
No.
You know what I mean? And so this movement right now, with everything that's happening, that's what's coming back. Right. And we're in some sort of grand cycle of, you know, end of the world, absolutely. End of a world age, a world cycle. And there is going to be dissolution, and there's going to be destruction, and there's going to be pain and torture and suffering and famines. There will be that. That's what happens down here, you know? Right. And so, and this has to happen because we're so far away, because we've been hungry for the word. And God doesn't want that anymore. No. We don't want it in our lives. People are starting to realize it, and that's changing. Like I forget who I was talking to, but there's this old Irish adage that I heard like a long time ago, like a little proverb, whatever. It says, "May you be alive at the end of the world."
I've heard that.
Right? I've heard that before. Why? Because it's almost a blessing. Because you get to see as all the veils drop. You're like, oh, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. And from the dropping of those veils, if you're a true truth seeker, you'll get to see the light. You'll get to see that truth.
Right.
Which is glorious.
Right.
To say otherwise is the most, anyway, you get it.
Well, I didn't get into half of what I want to talk. You've got to come back some other time. We still got a few more minutes, but
I got some time here if you want. It's up to you. So
I got time, so let's do it. But end of this book right here, I recommend everybody to go buy it, and they can't go to the website, so they can get it on Amazon. Can they get it on Amazon?
No, I'm trying to literally bring everything to my site, so everything's exclusive there. So I'm trying to get my other books off Amazon, and the podcast is only there. Right. That sort of thing. So I was trying to work. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm just saying when the website's up, they can buy your book on the website. That's where I got it from.
Yes, and so let everybody know we are switching the website over. Like right now, MartyLeedsCertificate.com is going to GnosticAcademy.org. So there's probably going to be some hiccups. There's probably going to be some late night fixing things or whatever. So if you do have any issues, we appreciate your patience. We're getting everything switched over. So, but yes, it's all for sale. And $5 a month becomes a member.
It's up. It just came up.
Nice. Yeah, I thought they were getting on it. So $5 a month, you become a member, and that's literally my life's work is on there. Like all the music that I've made, you can read all the books that I've ever written. They're on there, all the podcasts, all the new podcasts. And speaking of Amor, we're probably gonna call you later because we're hopefully want to come over possibly around next weekend, middle next week or something. So, and trying to get him more on board with all of this as well. So,
yeah, he's definitely a blessing. I love talking to him. He's very humble, but we do have a lot like you. We have a lot of laughs with each other, and that's my most important thing. Is to get people to laugh and to smile and everything. But yeah, the website does absolutely look great right here. Like I said, it just came up as you were talking on our thing. So you can go to his website and buy the books and things of that nature, as he said. But what else? I mean, you do music. I mean, you've got all this kind of music and everything. What else can you not do? I mean, what else? You do everything. What can you not do? Please, that's what I want to know. What do you not do?
Car maintenance?
Right.
Terrible at that. No, I mean, seriously, jack of all trades, like master of none. I mean, I know it's supposed to be jack of all trades, master of one. I think that's the original, but I mean, I just, dip my toes in all sorts of things, and music's always been a big part of my life. And I always liked writing. I always had like a journal and things like that. And I never thought I'd necessarily be an author.
Right.
But at some point I was like, it'd be cool to write a book or, but I don't know. I just like doing all the things.
This is so well written. Did you have any help with this, or is this just you?
All me. Jennifer helped edit it, and she helped doing some formatting stuff, which was a huge help.
I can imagine.
And it just made the book a lot more digestible because I broke it up in sections, which was her idea. Right. I mean, women always have good ideas. You know what I'm saying? They always have good ideas. Not always, but
leave that alone.
Woman you got, right? Mine has got good ideas all the time. Anyway, I spent the last, I don't know, probably year and change, maybe more. I don't even remember writing it. I got to be honest, though. I said this several times. I don't even remember writing it. It was like one of those things. Yeah. Like I swear to God, like every time I sat down to do it, I would just be like, okay, I just sat down and was like, I kind of knew what I wanted to say. And so the way I write is probably not the best way to write, but I basically just throw a bunch of stuff on the page and then go back and be like, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. And so I fill in, which makes editing a freaking nightmare. But it was one of those things. It was like I just kind of sat down and just let it out. You know what I mean? I kept focused, but I was just kind of, and I can only attributed to the same sort of thing, like when you get into a zone or whatever, when you're playing music or songwriting, like you're just there to receive. You don't, or you're just there to pick up whatever comes in, and you have to be there. You have to have the tools ready. You have to be ready to take whatever that melody is or that riff is into the next verse. You have to just be ready there to sort of put the puzzle together and be in the zone. And when you're a musician and jamming, that's exactly where you want to get, where you're essentially not thinking. You're thinking, but you're not like, oh, I got to play A here and B here, and then I move to the C and blah, 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 whatever. You're not doing that. You're just kind of doing. So in writing the book, a lot of it was like that, especially the Kabbalah chapter. I was just like,
that's my favorite.
I thought I was going to write a chapter on 30, 40 pages or something. And next thing you know, I'm like, Jennifer's like, well, you're making a big book. Just let it go. And so I was like, okay.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, this is a book in and of itself, but it's kind of, as you see, it's kind of necessary to be in there because it really captures the whole thing. It's like, hey, everything that you think has been, demonic and satanic and Kabbalah, that's all that. It's like, just throw it out the window. Just throw it out, because we're here to relearn God, not listen to what a bunch of ignorant people or deluded people or people that don't have a whole story.
Well, I think Omar said it great. He says, talking about the Kabbalah, he says, many times it's dark, it's evil. Yeah, you bet your butt the evil people know Kabbalah because they follow it too in the way that they understand it. Kabbalah is not just one thing. It's many different understandings of it. And even the darkness has it also, as well as the light. It's just how you portray it and how you use it, really.
That really shows you how powerful human beings are and how powerful our will is too. Because in this sort of sense, when you pick the knowledge of the fruit of good and evil, you're picking knowledge of good and evil. Well, that means that, guess what? You're in a place of good and evil. So people can take that which is good and use it for all sorts of heinous purposes, as we know. And I will say this, Kabbalah will actually lead you to the darkness. That is one of the things it will do. It will lead you to the feet of the devil in that sort of sense. Not to worship at his feet, not to be like, oh, you're the beast and I love. No, is because you need to know where he is so you can go cut his damn head off.
Right.
In this metaphoric sense, you need to know where the serpent is so you can grab a hold of it and no longer let it take control of you, and let that energy rise up through you and be like, I got you.
Right.
You're mine.
That's grabbing the ego is what it is, really. You've got to have that balance in life. It's, Christianity is taught that this devil, we run from him and we're scared of him and stuff like that. But really, we got to take the darkness as part of the balance of the light. You've got to have it.
I'm so glad you're saying this, because I've heard so many Christians over the years say the same sort of thing. It's like, oh, keep away from the devil, stay away from the devil. No. Would you put 6 pieces of the armor of God on to go running away? No, you put 6 pieces of armor. You got your sword of the spirit, and you're going to go running for the hills because the little snake over here went, hisses at you. No, no. And I've been thinking about this lately too. Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't want to go off on a little diatribe.
Go, do it.
But it just made me think, it was like, so I really wanted to get over on Rockfin. I wanted to, because a lot of things happening over there. They're promoting people and stuff like that, right? And I haven't heard back from them. It's been a month and a half or change. And so I don't know. I don't know what's happening with it. But it made me think about still being on YouTube, right? And we know about YouTube. We know the people that run YouTube. We know that they're scum. We know that they're censoring. We know that they're, blocking people and unsubbing people. We know the tricks of their trade, right? And it's made me, it's like, okay, well, everybody over on Rockfin, they all are already half awake or 3/4 awake anyway, right? There's everybody over there. If you're over there, it's like, you already know the conspiracies. You're probably already told, it's like, oh, they're lying about history and lying about cosmology, right? And it made me think, it was like, well, did Jesus, he said, I didn't come for the righteous. I didn't come to call the righteous. I came for the sinners to repent, right? And it's like he went into the synagogues of these Pharisees that were hating on him, and he taught, right? He went in and healed, as we're going to find out in Mark chapter 3, he healed the person with the withered hand. So he went into the den of vipers themselves and taught the word in that sort of sense. And it made me think about being on YouTube. I'm like, well, I don't want to go to a place where a bunch of people are going to be like, oh, yeah. I actually want to go. It makes me think, it's like, I want to stay in the den of vipers and teach the word, because that's where it needs.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there is a sense too that it's like normies are still on YouTube. So if you can somehow still stay on YouTube and you're actually reaching people that are not going to be reached if they're over on Rockfin or they're over on Odyssey or they're over on BitChute. And so there's been this part of me that's been really conflicted about that. But I mean, you know, I've been reading scripture and I'm like, well, no, maybe I should just stay put. Maybe I'm exactly where I need to be. You know, no, I'm going to walk into the den of vipers and I'm going to be like, Christ.
Right.
You know,
Rockfin's great, but even as great as it is, it's very limited compared to Amazon. I mean, to YouTube. YouTube is the biggest fish tank out there to reach people. Rockfin's great. I've got some subscribers that I watch over there, but inevitably I always come back to YouTube to watch everything. So I think you're right there. It would be a good platform to get on, but what you're looking for is actually here on YouTube, to be honest, if you can get away from the algorithms and stuff like that.
I mean, even if you look at a guy like JP Sears or something, whatever you may think about him or whatever, but he does, you know, is actually giving out a lot of truth by using comedy and still staying on a platform in which, once again, most normies, if you will, that sort of term, are here. So it's like he's reaching people that if he was just over on Rockfin, he's just not going to reach. No. And so it's like, okay, well, it just makes me rethink all this thing. It's like, you know, it's interesting because you really have to. I'm starting to learn anyway. I'm starting to learn. Maybe this year is my big lesson that everything comes as some sort of blessing. There's a blessing behind everything, or a lesson to teach, you know, if something happens. So, you know, our compost toilet for the second time this week, apparently it has a leak in it.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Let's see where the story's going, right? Now, I've picked up lots of shit in my life. No big deal. I worked at the vet. You know, I picked up poop crap, went behind a dog and catch its pee, did all that stuff. So I've worked that, so it's no big deal. But so I was like, finally, Jennifer, we never really liked this unit. We're like, so it happened again. So I had to clean up like 2 inches of pee the other day. It was disgusting. Yeah. Anyway, and then it happened again this morning. It was like, is that pee? And it's like, sure enough, there's a crack in the drum or something.
Oh no!
So, you know what? Let's just haul this thing. Let's get it out. Let's just get this thing out. We don't need it. We've got a toilet. We can, you know, blah blah blah. We've got an outhouse. Let's use the outhouse. No big deal. So we get it out, and next thing you know, we're like, oh wow, we've got all this room. So this morning, before I even got on, I was helping, you know, with the website and stuff. And while I wasn't doing that, I was moving all this stuff out of the room. And next thing you know, our place like totally opened up. We have this whole extra room now. We've got all the stuff that's in a storage, you know. So here it was. I had to go through 2 days of, you know, at least one day of cleaning up some nasty shit again. And I could have, and honestly, it's probably been a year ago, I'd have probably been bitching up a storm. Right. Like, oh God, freaking, I gotta clean it up. But here we are. I'm like, Jennifer and I are like, oh my God, it's like we got a new place now. So it's really so much about perception and like that sort of stuff. And man, I'll just say that can be a hard lesson to learn, you know? This is what we're here. We're all learning the lessons. I'm learning them.
Is there heat in the outhouse though? Is there heat out there in the outhouse? No. Oh shit.
It's so funny. We're so acclimated to this. Like, I mean, I'm in the car right now outside, and this car's not on. So, I mean, and I only have one layer on right now. So, we've totally acclimated to it, like no problem. I mean, we've been doing cold showers. We were jumping in the river, you know, acclimating ourselves. I do Wim Hof breathing every morning and stretching and stuff like that. So,
right.
But yeah, it's been zero issue. Like that was one thing coming back here. I was like, oh, I don't know, the cold. It's like. But I'm walking outside literally in my shorts and peeing.
You were in Hawaii, right?
Yeah. So I went from, it's called yin yang.
Yeah.
It's called so.
Wow. That is awesome. Now I do watch the videos with y'all with the dogs and everything outside, which is pretty cool. But yeah, this is how we learn, and we learn progression within our life when things that used to really piss us off or would set you off. And all of a sudden now it's just not. It's not a big deal, although you don't want to be cleaning piss and crap like that. But it just settles in your mind. Well, it has to be done, so we have to do it. And it's still, I have to have heat in the outhouse, brother. I'd have to, just have to.
It's like, I don't know. It's just not. I don't know. We don't have like hot water. We don't have running water. We have an outhouse.
Right.
And so we live like super simply, but we also don't have a lot of things that can go wrong. We don't have a mortgage. So right now, I mean, as of right now, I'm just the only thing we're doing. Jennifer's not working. I work a lot online and stuff and putting things together, but we're not working 40-hour week jobs.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, we're sacrificing, quote unquote, some things here, but the benefits that we're gaining from that are huge.
Absolutely.
Even in Hawaii, when we were off grid, she was working, I was working, and even before Corona, it got to a point where we were like, something's got to give. It was too much. We were just too many hands and too many pies and that sort of sense. And so once again, I mean, we miss Hawaii. We love Hawaii. I love the tropics and some people there and stuff like that. So I miss a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. But once again, you got to get in the way, the zone that way. And God was like, you can't be here anymore.
Right.
You got to do something else. And we just literally went with it, having no idea, just jumped on board. God was like, come on the ship. We're like, all right, let's do it. And then now we're in a place that's like, it's been great. I mean, the break that we needed, the quietude that we needed. There's no way I would have finished my book if I'd still be in Hawaii. Got to see my brother's talking about come up next weekend or the weekend after about going ice fishing. It's good. So you just got to take it as it comes. Some people would be like, that would be the worst thing in the world. Like, oh, you left paradise. And don't get me wrong. I miss Hawaii. There's lots of things I miss. I miss pulling fresh pineapples out the ground and stuff, but it's been great. So,
well, I joke mostly because I mean, it's like we've got a call for like an inch of snow here this weekend and everybody's going crazy now. The stores are selling out and, we just don't get that stuff here, but I could adjust to most anything. I really believe that in my life and everything. And I always have looked for that same thing for the Creator to let me get to a point to where I could step out of this rat race that we're in, because I am full time. I own my own business, and I would love to step out of that arena and just not do that no more and be able to make it. And so the sacrifices have to be made, because if you don't make the sacrifices, you'll never get the opportunity like you've got to do here, what you're doing right now.
And I think people need to know, like, what do they call it in the Bible? It's like your office or your station, I think is some of the terms that they use. But it's like, you got to kind of figure out what your office is, what your station is in life, who you are, and do that. And do it 100%. You know what I mean? And what that is for Rebel Preacher is different than Marty Leeds. Marty Leeds is not going to go and obviously play NBA basketball. I'm 5'0.5". That's not my station. That's not my office in life.
Right.
So your whole, trajectory and quest in life is to find out, in that sense, who you are individually, specifically as you. And as I've come to find, who that was something I had no idea I would ever do. The idea that I'd ever be preaching or opening a church or ministry or writing a book on Christ is ridiculous. If you'd have told me that 20 years ago, I'd have been like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What went wrong? How did I go? That's what I would have asked, right? Like, what happened, man?
Look at me now.
Yeah. But so in that sense, you have to be open, and you have to, and sometimes you have to take freaking leaps. Meeting my wife was a huge leap. That was like, God, this could go south, really, but it didn't, and it was like almost a leap of faith in that sort of sense. And yeah. And then of course, if it does go south, you also have to know, hey, this is going south. I'm not just going to keep tethered to the anchor as as it drags me down. You got to know when to release too.
Right. Let go.
So,
that's right.
Yeah.
That is good.
I had no idea I'd be doing any of this. And I had no idea who I truly was. But finding it out, I mean, it's the treasure of all treasures. It's the gift to the Gentiles in that sense.
I agree, and I love the way you talked about the Christ consciousness is all. Everybody can find that wherever you're at. You can find that, but you have to want to find it. You can't just sit back and just anticipate and hope and cry and matter. You sometimes have to get up and actually do the job and dig, and it's not easy to dig, especially against traditions and things of that nature, which you've been talking about all the time. So I appreciate it. I appreciate this time we've had talking and the interview we've had, and hope you come back one day. Amar, he moved up there with you and he's lost his signal, so he never gets to come on here no more. So never. So,
well, he can come hang out in the car with me, and we'll do. We've been calling them sermons in the car, not on the mountain. Doing sermons in the Honda. And, no, like I said, I want to contact him later today or tomorrow or something like that, because we want to get over there, and so maybe we'll do a video when we're over there or something. But yeah, I'd love to come back on, of course, man.
Yeah, well, I would love to have you for sure. But I do appreciate your time, because I know you've got things you need to be doing and everything, and your battery's probably close now.
It's getting there.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's probably getting close, and I appreciate it. But again, the book is Lord Jesus Christ, www.martylead33.com. Anything you want to say in closing, sir?
MartyLeads33.com is soon to be. No, I know. It's soon to be. I was just going to clarify.
About so.
Hopefully it is right now, actually, while we're speaking, but we're switching everything over to GnosticAcademy.org now. And
that's what it says.
And we're working on a bunch of different stuff for the new year, trying to get more involved. We're working on a lifetime membership package, specific Bibles that we're selling, which actually I'm looking at trying to get the Masonic edition of the Bible to sell on the website, which is yeah, it's a really cool little Bible too. So I've talked to a local guy here. So yeah, just a bunch of stuff, rosaries, and every Sunday. And then this year I'll be starting on another book. Probably won't get it done until next year, but and that is I'll leave that.
Come on, man. Don't do that.
We'll do it next time. We'll talk about it.
Oh my God, you do that crap. Okay. That's good. Thank y'all so much for your time. And until next time, this is the Rebel Preacher with Marty Leeds. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.